Good evening, everybody, and welcome. There is a lag in the video today for some reason. Don't know why that is. I shan't worry about it. It looks like you can hear me too. Okay, good. Welcome. It is July the 22nd, 2025. It's the day before I go on holiday, which is a cool thing. I haven't been on holiday in a good long while, so looking forward to that. I have to do my packing tonight, though, so tonight we're going to mourn the death of Flash in the macro studio. Not really, but yeah, that's the title. We're going to be examining the current state of Flash as one of the sources of light that we use in the macro studio and looking at how it's changed over the last couple of years. And it really has. But it'll be full of tips and tricks and recommendations. And as I look at the list of names of folks who dropped by tonight, not the people who need recommendations and tips and tricks from me, but there you go. Sometimes that's the way it goes. I guess when I told everybody I was going on holiday, they thought I was going today as well, but that's okay. That's okay. We'll still do the thing, right? So let me tell you what's coming up the rest of the week, the weekend, and next week. Nothing at all. After tonight, I'm gone. And that'll be it. Okay, any questions? I'll be gallivanting around in the Scottish borders. I'll be, where else will I be? Down in London at Borough Market, eating the best food in the world. And then I'm going to go to my childhood home in the village of Linfield in the county of Sussex. And if there's any time left, I'm going to visit some of the schools that I was expelled from as a child to see if they've had a change of heart yet. Probably not. They didn't last time I went by. Okay, so what we're going to do is on August the 3rd, when I get back, I'm going to be judging the competition this month, which is reptiles and amphibians, with Angie Wallace. And she's a well-known photographer of frogs and is going to be a great judge for this competition. So that's the first thing I'll do when I get back. And hopefully that week, one of our live streams will be the results. So I'm looking forward to that. And that'll probably be the Thursday so that Angie can be with us. Let me see. Tonight, I want to answer a question. No, before I do that, before I answer the question, I'm going to ask a question. Would you guys make a recommendation for what you want the competition to be about in August? And I'll decide tonight and announce it tonight, but I don't have enough bandwidth to come up with anything interesting. So please tell me, please, you think I'm on the wrong mic? I'm definitely not on the wrong mic. Are you getting an echo? Is that what it is? No, I'm definitely on the right mic according to this. I'm going to switch though. Not by doing that. Hold on just a second. Let me try something else. Is that any better? Nope. We have a delay is what it is, and I don't know where that's coming from. Let me see if I can figure this out very quickly. There's usually... hang on just a second. Let me do something while I'm talking. I'm just checking some... properties on this microphone. I'll tell you what, I'm going to change microphones and see if that helps. Does that help? Nope, still got an echo. Let me try something else. All right. I really don't know what is going on here. All the settings are correct. Let me see. Can somebody tell me what's going on? It's not the delay, but the sound volume. Too low? Is that what it is? That I can... No, I can't fix that. I really don't know how to turn the volume up any higher than that. Let me see. None of that's helping, right? Okay, well, it's there is a delay. The audio is low and stuffy, like you're missing chunks of the spectrum. Well, that's highly unlikely, but I don't know. I'm going to add a different microphone and try that, because nobody is going to want to watch this without sound, so that would be kind of pointless. I am now going to switch over to another microphone, and hopefully that'll do it. Alrighty. I am going to turn that one on, turn this one off. Is that any better? There still seems to be a delay that I have no idea how to get rid of. The sound is okay, so that's better, but the delay is still there. Honestly, I don't know how to fix that. I've never had that problem before. Let me add. I'm switching one more microphone, and then I'll be done messing around with this. I do apologize. All right, let me try this. One second, I will be with you. Okay. All right. Now we're using the same microphone on all the screens, and hopefully that will give you some sound. So the sound is better. Okay, all right. I do apologize, guys. I don't know why that is. And I don't know why there's a delay. It says my signal is great. There's no drop frames or anything, so I don't know what it is. Okay, so where was I? The question. If you guys can give me some suggestions for the competition, that would be great. So the question I got was, listen, this was from a very, very well-known, successful photographer that I've worked with over the years from time to time. And the question was, I'm still getting dropped frames when I use flash. This person is a continuous light shooter largely, and has been really frustrated in trying to add flash to the armamentarium because of the issue of dropped frames. And that whole process got me thinking about, maybe it's time I talked about where flash is today, and why the scenery is changing a little bit as to what people are choosing to use. There's one very obvious reason that things have shifted, and that is the advent of mirrorless cameras, which give us now the option of very, very quickly shooting a stack that used to take half an hour or an hour, doing it in a couple of minutes, because we don't have to wait on flash to recharge. So a lot of people have moved away, and there are other things that are going on that have helped this, and I'll get into all of them in just a minute. The quality of the LEDs, for example. But in fact, flash is not dead, not by a long shot. There are still things that we can only do with flash, and there are still things that flash is way better at than continuous light. So the question that I was posed, what are the best practices? How should we use light in the macro studio, and flash light in the macro studio? And that's what I want to talk about tonight, is how to use it to the maximum effect to get the best possible images. And I'm going to show you some pictures that I've taken with continuous light and with flash, and show you that when they're done right, there isn't a whole lot of difference. But there's not a whole lot of difference because I'm choosing the right light for the right circumstance. And we'll go through that. So that's what we're going to do in this last stream before I take off. It's let me see. I wrote down some notes, but I scribbled them because it was late last night. Yeah. I have no idea. I honestly have no idea what I wrote here. It looks fascinating, but yeah. The speed of stacking with continuous light is very, very appealing, especially when I'm doing a lot of the same subject, and I get the light dialed in. it is very easy to fall into the habit of using just lights. And I have the same philosophy for my continuous light that I use in my speed lights. I use a lot of light sources. I use a whole field of them, and I position them to get effects that are impossible with smaller numbers of brighter lights. So that's much the same way that I use flash. But like I say, there are still things that are absolutely not available to continuous light. So we're going to talk about those. And the fact that flash was dead was in my head for a small period of time. It was after I saw my first few stacks shot with the Z8 with a good macro lens and continuous light. I thought, well, that's it. I'm not gonna be using flash anymore. And of course, that's not it at all. And flash came back to life pretty quickly. So I'm gonna be uncharacteristically, I hope this is uncharacteristic, I'm going to be uncharacteristically direct in the advice that I give tonight, because I have got some very firm opinions about using flash and the flash to use. I certainly look forward to getting your comments as we go along, but you know, I've been doing this a long time now, and I really have got good reasons for all of the things that I do when it comes to the light, and I'm going to go through them one at a time, and all of this stuff taken together will answer my friend's question of what is it I need to do to minimize the risk of drop frames, lost shots because of the way the flash is working or not working. So that's what we're going to do. Now, the big change, of course, the thing that has really changed the face of photography almost as much as the digital camera is the mirrorless technology. The first Sony mirrorless camera had just come out when I bought my first digital SLR, and they were tiny, and they were pretty ugly looking things and hard to hold, let alone hard to use. But they have come a long way with the electronic viewfinders that are some of the best in the business, as well as high ISO performance that match the best DSLRs, and being able to see what you get have changed everything. You know, what you see is what you get with a mirrorless camera, so unlike the way it works with a DSLR. So continuous light goes hand in hand with mirrorless, and it makes it very appealing. So why is flash not obsolete then? Surely everybody's got themselves a mirrorless camera now and is thinking continuous light. Well, the reasons it's gaining ground and the reasons people are shifting to it is how easy it is to use. That you can focus in real time, you've got focus peaking, all the bells and whistles. A lot of people now are using video. I know I am. I use a lot of video for my footage, for all kinds of media that I make, and I use it in combination with stills. So being able to jump back and forth between video and stills with continuous light is possible, and much easier. LED panels are brighter, cooler, less expensive, with more modifiers. They're more flexible, more versatile, more powerful. They've changed dramatically and continue to. They've also gone up in price. But there are no recycle time limitations, obviously, and that's a huge benefit. So if all of that is going against the use of flash, what does flash have going for it? Well, probably the most important thing is that with flash, we can absolutely stop motion in its tracks. Something you can't do with continuous light. You're very much at the mercy of your camera's shutter speed, but we can freeze motion with the IGBT type speed light flashes, the gated transistor flashes like the ones you have, I'm sure, on your camera now. Those flashes can freeze time with exposures of 1/20,000th of a second. the light is there for 1/20,000th of a second. So it doesn't matter how fast your camera is, this is faster. And that is not something that you can do with a flash that uses the whole charge in the capacitor, ramps up and ramps down again like a studio light or a monoblock. These devices are very, very fast, and they get faster as the power gets lower, and that's something that we're going to be talking about more in a little bit. So if you're shooting anything in the studio that moves, as we often are, then having this kind of driven flash is crucial to stopping motion blur, jumping spiders, anything that praying mantises that are constantly moving and combing their eyes, that type of thing, things with antennae that twitch. It's very important that you freeze that motion. So flash delivers more light per dollar. Now, how you arrive at that number is going to determine whether or not that's strictly true, but you just get more photons per watt of power from flash than you can with continuous light. They are brighter, they're cleaner, the light doesn't have any gaps in it, it's basically sunlight, unlike even the best LEDs that are kind of put together to mimic sunlight. And that the small flashes, and I meant to bring a couple to my desk and I didn't, they're over there, but you know what an MF12 looks like, and I'll show you a picture of one in just a second. But they can rival, an MF12 can rival the light output of a fairly decent sized LED panel, which is crazy. That is, of course, in terms of effective illumination at short distances, but that's where we use them. We use them at short distances. And this is especially true for the high magnification work that we do. So when I'm talking about flash in the studio, I am almost always talking about flash on a fixed station in the studio at 1:1 or higher, oftentimes much higher. So that's what we're talking about. What we're not talking about, by the way, is field macro. I'm carving that out as a separate subject, and my feelings on it have not changed. I am trying to get more comfortable with the idea of using a single speed light in the field with a diffusion hood like the AK diffuser or something similar. I've been using something like that for many years, and I'm still not super comfortable with it. The light tends to be a little bit uniform and a little bit characterless. So I do prefer multi-unit light systems like Joseph was referring to from my picture at the beginning of the program. Let me see if I can find a couple of those. And the point was well made. The large numbers of smaller lights are still always going to be my preference out in the field. I don't know where the pictures of them are. Typical, probably lost them somewhere along the way, but I'll show you a couple of them, a couple of smaller pictures of them. This is the MF12 that actually, Joseph, this was the MF12. I'm gonna have to change my microphone, sorry. One second, chat amongst yourselves. Okay, that should have done it. All right, so good. All right, so this is the MF12 flashes that I use, and that picture that Joseph was referring to is actually an array of 8 MF12s, not the SB200s, though we will be talking about those in just a little bit. So I'm going to sum up what I think about field macro lighting from my perspective. The best device for lighting macro in the field at short distances and decent magnifications, in my opinion, is the R1C1 from Nikon. Nikon's creative lighting system, multi-unit flash. I think you really need to use it with multiple flash units, probably if not 2, maybe 3 or 4 even. And that's the way I tested it, was with that. The reason I love it is because the through the lens metering and the ITTL shooting is so much better than it is with the Godox. The Godox are smaller, lighter, easier to use, and cost a lot less. They're now about $59 a piece if you get them during a sale at Flashpoint. They are $100 a piece otherwise. But that is compared to the SB200, which is, I guess, 300 or so a piece. I'm not really sure. So that's it for the field as far as I'm concerned. I use the Nikon if I can, the Godox if I can't, and a single light if that's my only option. So we're getting back into the studio now. So what makes flash a superior option? Well, one thing is the light is emitted in short bursts. These things put out very short bursts of light, and they don't generate a lot of heat. And that is really, really important in macro. You cannot be heating your subject with your light source like you most certainly would if you were using any kind of a halogen bulb or any kind of incandescent bulb at all. But even with LEDs, it can get warm, and warming insects that have been dried causes them to move in unpredictable ways, and it's just not good, and it's certainly not good for live subjects, which you will kill. Also, things like crystals that we like to photograph will just melt if you put them in front of a bright light, and that makes for not very good crystal pictures. So I think that when you're using organic matter like flowers or dried insects, you're better off with flash than you are with continuous light of any kind. Flash has battery powered portability, unlike most continuous lights. Now some do, the small ones do, and I'm not going to talk too much about the very small compact square lights. They are good and they're handy, they come in very useful, but I'm talking about enough battery power to carry you through a deep stack. Wireless speedlight rigs with radio triggers like the ones I use, the Godox setup, very, very mobile. They can go anywhere, but they're also great for studio setups when you're shooting in tight spaces, and you know that my rig is a very tight space. Let me find out where my pictures disappeared to. I think I've got some pictures of my studio in here somewhere. Let me see. So this is an example of how incredibly flexible these small flashes can be. You can put them on the end of a bendy arm. You can't do that with an LED panel. You can do it with a single LED light, of course, and you can also use fiber optics. But these are just very portable, very easy to get the lights into the space. You have very precise control over exposure when you're using these things. They give you third stop increments, and you can control them from the comfort of your camera, 3 feet away or 2 feet away, with the Wi-Fi trigger. It allows you to dial in the exact power of all of the units on your setup, and that is something that is very, very difficult to do with continuous light, especially if you're having to use flags or bounce cards to increase the intensity of light coming from one direction or another. I'm not crazy about it. Now, when you're using rim lighting or backlighting or specular enhancement to bring some detail out, flash is particularly good for that, because you can add all kinds of modifiers on the front, and the management of your background illumination is trivial with flash. You can make them as dark or as light as you want to, and by just adding one more flash to your setup, you can creatively light that also. Another whole area of advantage that you get from flash that you don't get from continuous light is better color quality as the powers get higher. high-end speed lights and the like the good Godox and the more expensive studio strobes do deliver better temperature stability than cheaper LEDs, because they tend to have gaps in their band makeup, where you'll have some colors that simply aren't represented by the LED, meaning those colors in the real world are not reflected by that light, and you can end up with some weird coloring abnormalities. That doesn't happen with most decent quality speed lights and studio strobes. They just put out sunlight, and this is even more important if you're doing product photography, or if you're doing reproduction work, or you're documenting artwork or something like that. You absolutely have to have reliable color. And there is a step up from these, and we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about devices that look more like this than the one I've been talking about. But I'm going to show it to you only to say it's not something that I use, and it's not something I recommend, and I'll get into why in just a little bit. I do not recommend using studio strobes, even if you are lucky enough to have ProPhoto B10s or whatever they are. They are still far too bulky to use for the kind of work that we're doing. So another advantage of using flash is that you have an almost limitless selection when it comes to snoots and reflectors and honeycombs and beam restrictors, and there's just a more mature ecosystem. We've been making light modifiers for flash forever, and the world of continuous lighting is just now kind of catching up to some of that. So you have more selection, and flash specific tools are things like flash brackets, dual flash brackets, or TTL metering like we talked about, or high-speed sync, which can be useful sometimes, though I don't use it a whole lot. Something that you'll see with less expensive continuous lighting panels that you will never see with flash is flicker. And inconsistencies in exposure, or worse, banding just ruins your photographs. Flash, when it's triggered properly, doesn't have any such issue. It's just one burst of light. So flicker-free shooting is another advantage. I think at high magnification, your stacking efficiency is probably as good as with continuous light when you actually break down everything that you have to do and include the number of shots you have to repeat, because I have found that if I get my flashes dialed in perfectly, the savings of continuous light is not quite as good as I thought it was at first. It's faster, for sure. Continuous is faster, but the advantages of having less vibration, blur, and basically getting the whole thing done in about the same amount of time, but with a more predictable color and illumination, is worth it. It's hard to say. It's really hard to say whether one is better than the other, but these are 10 reasons why I would use flash a lot of the time where I have been using continuous. I'm in the process of hanging on to the pendulum as it swings back a bit. There are several creative looks that I'm going to show you in a little bit that you can get with flash that you just can't get with continuous light. And it's a little hard to describe, but I tried to replicate this photograph of a tiger beetle's leg using both continuous light and flash, and I could get it with flash, though on this screen it doesn't look nearly as good as it does on my Apple screen. But anyway, I couldn't replicate this with continuous light. It was pretty flat, which was disappointing. Let me see if I've got a better example, because there are some that look better with continuous light. Here's one of several of these same insect you're going to see a lot of, my famous tiger beetle, that absolutely I could not replicate that without flash. There were about 8 flashes used to get that effect, and I love it. It allows you to leave shadows where you want them, and just get exactly the kind of feel you want in terms of light drop off. It's also very useful in high contrast product photography and art photography, to be able to have control over your lights, where they fall, how they fall off. And can you do something similar with continuous light? Well, obviously you can. I mean, I went out and bought 19 continuous lights so that I could do something similar, but it never quite gets to the same level, in my opinion. It gets close, but not quite. It doesn't duplicate it. So here's the way I think about it. When I'm photographing live insects, or include in that any insects that are likely to move significantly, then I use flash. Anything that is going to move. Studio still life, I think it can be either. You can use a flash or continuous. If you want a portable setup, it needs to be flash, unless you have 2 sets of the multiple small lights and lots of batteries. I think flash is probably better. If color accuracy is absolutely paramount, use flash. If you're going to be stacking a long stack, definitely use flash, and I'll get into the long stacks in just a second. If you're doing video work, use continuous light. Make sure that's what you're using for the photography, for the same content block. And if you're training beginners, like I do sometimes, I think you need to know both. I think you need to learn both, but I teach the flash first, and you use the continuous light as a way to augment that. There are times that you can use continuous light and flash together, but usually not for taking pictures. It's for setting up shots. So you can certainly use continuous light from your speed light modeling lights, but it's unlikely that you would be using continuous light and flash together. They seldom are flattering. All right, so what are the most important elements then in you've decided you're going to use flash for whatever it is you're shooting. You want to use flash. What is important for getting the most out of the flash and for minimizing the risk of drop shots, drop frames or lost shots, running out of power, all of that? Well, the first thing is there is no undiffused flash in macro. Yep, I'll say that. That's one of my uncharacteristically direct statements. You have to diffuse the light. There are very fine, wonderful photographers like Rick who don't see any reason to have more than one layer of diffusion. And I respect that. I don't agree with it, though. I think that there is a real advantage to using multiple layers of diffusion for certain subjects, so that you can diffuse the light twice. And so whether you do it once, twice, 3 times, just diffuse the light, and avoid the temptation to just use a bare flash. It will never work out. Whenever possible, get your speed lights off your camera. You don't want them on your camera. You want them off to the sides with diffusers or whatever you're using to modify the light, so that you can position the light right where you want it. You want to control the harshness of the light and the direction of the light, and the way you do that is with multiple diffusion layers. You need reliable syncing. Now these days I find the Godox wireless syncing system, and of course the Nikon system, to be pretty much flawless. I haven't had problems in a long time. Every now and again one of my students will have what appears to be definitely a hardware issue, and their trigger is simply not working. Maybe it's not set up right, but sometimes it just appears to not be working right, and that is a bad thing. But I find wiring the lights directly in the studio to be far too much stuff to go wrong, to trip over, to pull out, and I don't like hard wiring flash, not in the macro studio. There are several important tricks to making the most of your recycle time. I'll run through them in no particular order. Your recycle time is going to be stamped on the instruction sheet or the box of your flash. Don't believe a word of it, and don't go with the shortest recycle time they tell you that it can do. That's the recycle time when the batteries are fresh, when the device is new, when you're using it exactly as they say in the book. The trick to having enough time for your capacitor to recharge and be ready to take another flash is to use the lowest power you possibly can. And the key to that is to add light, light sources. Instead of adding twice the power to one MF12, add another MF12 and keep the power at the lowest setting. That will it'll actually increase it'll decrease your recharge time, your recycle time, by a factor of 4. So you get much longer duration out of using two lights to give you the same amount of light that you would get from one if you cranked it up. The other thing is, charge your batteries, or charge your MF12s. They have a 3.7 volt battery built in. Charge them between stacks if you're doing deep stacks. If you're doing a 400 or 500 shot stack, like I frequently will do, when I get through with that stack, I plug in, I have a pigtail with 8 USB plugs on the end, and I plug all my USB cords into all my flashes right where they are, and I leave them for half an hour while I go have my lunch or prep my next specimen or make some phone calls or whatever. It doesn't take long for them to refill. I know that sometimes it's not a good idea to fill batteries that aren't empty, but that's why I say I do this when I'm doing big stacks. I'll do 2 or 3 200 shot stacks in a row without doing that. So that is key. Start with fresh, full batteries, and leave yourself enough time. You are still going to be ahead of the game if you have a lag time of, say, 6 seconds, 7 seconds. I have found that 8 seconds will get me to the end of a 1,000 shot stack every time without a drop frame. It seems to be the maximum. There's no more advantage to going any longer than that. I never have failed to recharge unless a cell goes dead, unless I have a failure of the unit. So the trick then is use the lowest power you can, give it the longest recycle time that you can, and remember that's only a couple of seconds extra per shot. I know it adds up, but it's not nearly as expensive on your time as having to repeat the stack. So definitely do that. Another option is to use external battery packs. I'm not going to have time today to talk about the different units that will allow you to control them with external battery packs. There are a few, and they're not all great, and some of them are lousy. As far as I know, there is not a single speed light of the small variety that can be run off mains power, that can be run off an adapter in the wall. If there were, I would buy them, though I would add that my MF12s, and I have 10 of them, some of them are now almost 5 years old, and I'm still using them in heavy rotation, and I'm still using them for the kind of stacks that I've always done, and I still don't get drop frames. because of these things that I do. Recharge, always charge them at the end of a session, no matter what else is going on. Plug them all in. Never leave them empty overnight. Spread out the shots as long as you can get away with, and use more lights at lower power. The main trick. Okay, so where is flash going in the future? Probably to smart flashes of some kind, things with AI metering or adaptive power control, something that will, at least on paper, appear to solve all of our problems. It probably won't, but they'll likely at some point, somebody's going to integrate stacking rails with real-time light sequencing. I don't know exactly how that would work, but I've read a couple of things about it. The batteries are going to get more powerful, smaller, more compact, charge quicker, all the things that have happened with lithium powered flashes already, and continuing to. And there probably is going to be some kind of LED light that has a flash built into it, a real xenon flash. I have no idea what that would look like or who would make it, but it sure would be nice if you could do both. So flash is a long way from being dead. Flash is just more selective than it has been in the past because of mirrorless. There are times that, I would put it this way, there are times that we can get away with not using flash. Yeah, I think that sums it up more accurately than anything else. There are times that we can get away without having to use flash, in which case continuous light would be the way to go. I would not call continuous light the gold standard yet. When it comes to the purity of the light, flash is the gold standard. A couple of the lights that are out there that do have a continuous external power option, the Godox V1 and the V860. The V1 is a big round thing, and honestly, I don't know how I could work with 2 of those, let alone 6. So that wouldn't be a choice for me. The V860, 3 can use continuous power, not the 2 which I have. So, yeah, that's another option. But it's a big, heavy speed light. So not my cup of tea. Canon 600EX and the Nikon SB5000, Sony HVL60 or whatever it is. These are all run, I think, on AA batteries, but they have battery packs that somewhat speed up the recycle time. But again, you're talking about battery packs and cables and big flashes. I don't know how you're going to fit that in around a microscope objective. Another option that you can actually run by plugging it into the wall is the Godox AD200 Pro, or the AD100 Pro, I guess, is smaller. They're a weird light. They're a cross between a speed light and a studio strobe, but I do believe they have IGBT technology in them, so they don't discharge the whole charge of the capacitor, and it allows for very short flash duration. I'm pretty sure it does anyway. A lot of people ask me, they've come to macro from another photographic discipline and want to know if it's okay to just use the lights they've already got, the studio lights. The answer is probably no. You don't get any of the advantages of using the speed light technology in terms of speed, but you have ginormous soft boxes sitting on top of your equipment. You can't even see anything. I've tried it before. It doesn't work. Even using a monoblock like the Einstein from Baggins, Bilbo Baggins. Can't remember the name of the company in Tennessee that makes them. Very, very nice flash. I love it in the studio. It's great for product stuff. It's not any good for macro. It really isn't. So there are a couple of hacking options for continuous power for your speed lights. I'll talk about them another time. It just was something I was researching last week and thought it would be interesting. So why do speed lights fail during long stacks, which is kind of the question here tonight. One way they fail is from thermal shutdown. Thermal shutdown is when the flashing xenon tube is flashing too close together and it's heating up the device, and when it gets above a certain temperature, the circuitry will cut the power off. This is thermal shutdown, and it's to protect the device. You cannot have thermal shutdown shooting any speed light I'm aware of at 1/64th power or less, and I recommend being at 1/64th power or less pretty much all the time. So keeping it very low power, thermal shutdown just isn't going to happen. Leaving yourself plenty of time between shots will allow it to cool incrementally, and you're going to get far less misfire and drop shots if you have a 7 or 8 second gap. Battery voltage sag as the time goes by. The voltage will eventually start to drop a little bit. Well, it drops it immediately at first, and then it drops again later on. And when that starts to happen, it's often not enough juice left to fully charge the capacitor, and you'll get a missed shot. That's when you seem to you know that the battery's running low. And another time you'll just drop frames for no apparent reason if you're using cheap optical triggers. That they can just not function properly, and that's the only way you're going to do it. So use more units at lower power is your best bet. Remember that doubling the number of flashes and halving the power quadruples the endurance of the system. That's science. Okay, so 1/64th power or lower, and you'll avoid thermal buildup entirely, and faster recycle, so your flashes are always going to be ready when you're ready for them to take the next picture. Longer delay between shots. You need to give the capacitor time to refill. I have an MF12 with a dead capacitor that I'm going to have to change out, yeah, you absolutely have to have that in good condition. Don't push the capacitor by speeding it up faster than it can refill. There is a pre-shot delay, by the way, in Zerine. If you're using Zerine to control your shot, you can actually build in a delay there as well, I believe. Fully charge your batteries, and everybody swears about Eneloops. I never liked Eneloop batteries. I didn't find they lasted longer than Duracells, actually, off the shelf ones. The Eneloops are expensive as all get out. They charge up, and I just don't think they're as good. Also of note, the voltage, most people think a AA battery is 1.5 volts. That's what you'd want it to be, but Eneloops or any of these nickel metal halide batteries actually are only 1.2 or 1.3 volts, which means some of them don't put out enough power to do what the equipment is asking for, like fill the capacitor and fire the flash. So I had all kinds of problems. The TT350 that I referred to in my article yesterday as a TT150, I took 200 off it because I so dislike it, is one of the worst macro flashes I have ever used. It uses 4 cells, 4 AA cells, and I exclusively bought a box of Eneloop Pros to use with those flashes, and that thing cannot get through a 50-shot stack without dropping at least 1 frame, and it absolutely cannot complete a 200 shot stack under any circumstances. I used them as my primary lights for about 2 days, then I relegated them to using them as backdrop lights for another 2 days, and then I put them back in the box, and that's where they'll stay. They just are unbelievably unreliable with a very, very short battery life, and I think they make a V350 which has a rechargeable battery which may or may not be better, but I'm not going to risk it. It's also it's not a big flash, it's a small flash, but it's twice as big as an MF12. So there you go. That's my only negative thing to say. So and another option is to use dummy batteries if you are comfortable doing that. Some companies make them where you can put dummy batteries into the flash and it thinks it's using a battery, but it's getting powered from the wall. I have never tried to make one of those. I might one of these days, but yeah, apparently you have to have a good power supply if you're doing that, because if you don't put the right kind of juice into it, it can't output the right juice to the flash. And these things are really delicate. I just told you that they might not flash when you're using a 1.3 volt battery. Well, they might blow up if you use a 1.7 volt battery, so be very careful. Some external flash battery packs are really good and work really well, like Canon's E4N and Nikon's SD9, and Godox has that PB960, which I think several of you have. It's nice. Anyway, I believe that the recommended light source for in-studio high magnification macro photography is still the Godox MF12. Correction, the Flashpoint MF12. They're made in the same factory, I feel sure. The MF12s that are made by Flashpoint are sold exclusively by Adorama, and they stand behind the warranty that they come with. The others are sold by other vendors, often through other big companies, but Godox is at the end of that road, and Godox does not stand behind its warranty, though they do so in a way that makes it unusable. You will not get any help with a dead unit. If you order one and it arrives DOA, you're stuck with it unless you get the one from Adorama. So get your MF12s from there. I cannot today recommend any other light source for flash photography in the studio that is as reliable, as inexpensive, as easy to charge, easy to use, with menus that are easy to understand, that have built-in modeling lights, though I suggest you never turn them on and use them, they drain the battery. There are so many things going for these lights for a macro photographer. I don't think there really is an option. In fact, there isn't an option that I know of. If anybody does know of a flash that size, that weight, that can still be firing flawlessly after 5 years, please let me know. I had 10 of them. I have one of them that has either a bad flash tube or a bad main capacitor, and I'm getting ready to replace the batteries on all 10 of mine, but I'm going to have to replace both the flash tube and the capacitor on this one that won't fire. But other than that, and that happened after the thing was dropped, not far, just dropped onto a table, but it stopped working after that. So we'll have to see what it is. So they run cool, they never overheat, they never get into thermal trouble when the powers you're using them at, and yeah, and you can cluster 6 of them on one side of the specimen and 3 of them on the other and get the most incredibly interesting lighting from that. And if you're a 3D printer, you can make all your own modifiers and grids and snoots and everything else. So I'm not even going to recommend an alternative speed light, because I have not used a speed light, any brand, for any camera. I've not used one that I could rely on to shoot the kind of stacks I shoot without dropping a frame or two. I can absolutely consistently rely on the MF12s not to do that. And that is an endorsement that comes from 5 years of using these things, or 4 years, whatever it is, of using these things every day and using them till my fingers bleed. And I just don't have anything bad to say about them, unlike the maker of them. But that's a different thing. Okay, so a couple of tricks turn off TTL. You're never going to use it. You always need to be using your flash in manual. So we're going to assume you're using MF12s now. Turn off TTL. Use a good radio trigger like the triggers Godox X Pro, and they've made one called the Nano, which I don't have yet, but it's on my Christmas list. Yeah, it's the Nano. It's teeny tiny, but apparently it's as reliable as the X Pro, and they're more reliable. They are not susceptible to interference from other devices. They work great. Turn your modeling lights off. You don't need the modeling lights on an MF12. What you need is a work light above your station. Switch it on when you're setting things up. Switch it off when you're ready to shoot. Never turn the work light on an MF12. It's an unnecessary drain on the battery. Watch for pre-flash lag. Some flashes add a TTL pulse even when they're in manual mode, and you have to go in and disable that pulse of light. You can do it, it's in the menu, but you have to remember to do it. Just that pulse of light that you can't even see drains the battery, so that's what you're doing it. All right, now should we talk about IGTBs? What in the world are they? Something gated bipolar transistors. We're not going to talk about them, actually. We won't. We'll talk a little bit more about the MF12s. They do have IGBT technology in them. They're excellent for high magnification, multi-light clustering, low power use. The flash duration can be as short as 1/20,000th of a second at 1/128th power. They're superb thermally, especially in 164 to 1/128. They just don't get hot. And they're ideal for deep stacks. It's currently the gold standard for deep stacks in extreme macro photography. Anybody who's not using them has come up with something better, and I'd be fascinated to hear what it is. Continuous light, probably. Everything else has got drawbacks. The bigger flashes tend to have lower maximum speeds. They're bright, so you have trouble clustering them without overpowering. Some of them don't even have IGBT, like the larger monoblocks, so they don't do anything fast. Their flashes last forever. And there's the TT350. I think we've said enough about that. So let me see, is there anything else? I don't think so. I will throw out one last thing in the last minute that we've got before running over and looking at the comments, and that is the one time I will use an exception to the rule is if I have lights, if I'm out in the field but at the same time trying to set up for some studio stuff and I don't have enough MF12s, which sounds hard to believe, I will sometimes use a continuous light if I've got a very high quality LED panel to light my background. So I admitted that I do mix my lighting sometimes, but that's the only time. It's great for getting a real moody background that you can control. So that was the last thing I wanted to say. So state of the art today, if you do extreme macro photography, you need to go buy some MF12s. I recommend you buy 4, certainly no less, and yeah, it's just an investment in your photography. Let me see, is anybody still here? There were only, I think, 7 of you to begin with, so if we're down to 0, I will be very depressed. I can't find the right button. There it is. No, we got plenty of folks here. 45. Wonderful. You might look into what is that? Nickel zinc cells for your problem Godox. They are 1.65 volt rechargeable cells. But that's the thing. If those devices are made to run on 1.5, that might not be a good idea. I don't know. You won't blow up a flash on 1.7 volts. In fact, Nikon SB800 and a lot of other models have a doghouse battery cover that lets you put a 5th AA in the pack. Okay, fair enough. I stand corrected. Nikon speedlights are really built well, says Roy, and I know Roy and I had a discussion about this some years ago, and yeah, he's absolutely right. Those that R1C on the SB200s are fantastic. Art Wagner, take care. He's wishing you to take care, and yeah, I'm going to enjoy my brother's birthday. He's like 170 years old, I think. Insulated gate bipolar transistor, thank you, Joseph. What bendy arms do you recommend for the MF12s? I use these bendy arms that come on, what do you call those things? Helping hands. Helping hands bendy arms. Just the end piece here. This bit's far too big. That's a Manfrotto, but this is a, goes on a helping hands. You buy the helping hands, throw the yellow piece of metal away, and you've got 4 of these. Just kidding, just kidding. If you want some bendy arms, I am selling them. I accidentally bought 200. I thought I was buying 2. Anyway, I've got to go. I've got to pack for my trip to England. Yep, I've enjoyed getting this done today. I hope that the person who asked for it gets to watch it, and hope it helps. And I will see you guys shortly after August the 3rd with the results of the competition, and by that time I will have the microphone fixed, or it will be in flames, and somehow I'll get it all figured out. Until then, stay safe and be well. Have a great week and a half, and I'll see you when I get back. Good night. Thanks, Klaus.